this video, I'm going to teach you everything you need to know about 401k loans. Most 401ks, including individual or solo 401ks, have a provision that allows you to borrow from them. Unlike borrowing against a house, a car, or a whole life insurance policy with non-direct recognition, when you borrow against a 401k, you are actually taking the money out of the account. It is a subtle difference, but it matters. For example, if you borrow $50,000 against your house, you still get all of the appreciation or depreciation on the house. But if you borrow $50,000 out of your 401k, you do not receive any appreciation or income from the investments. That money, that opportunity cost, is lost forever. A typical 401k will allow you to borrow up to half of your balance or $50,000, whichever is less. It used to be a terrible idea to borrow from your 401k, because if you quit or lost your job, you're required to pay the loan back within 60 days of leaving the job, or else it would be treated as a withdrawal. A withdrawal would be not only fully taxable, but also subject to the 10% early withdrawal penalty. The 2 months after you lose a job is a particularly terrible time to have to come up with thousands of dollars to pay a 401k loan. So most would not pay it back and just suffered the consequences. Starting in 2018, a 401k loan became a slightly less terrible idea. That's because you have until tax day to pay back the loan after losing your job. So if you have a 401k loan out and lose your job in January, you now have 15 months until April 15th of the next year to pay back your loan. 401k loans charge interest, the interest rate of which is usually 1 to 2 points higher than the prime interest rate. That usually works out to be something like 6 to 8%. That interest is paid into your 401k, but there is no free lunch there. Some people think it is the equivalent of your 401k earning 6 to 8%, but that isn't the case. You're not earning anything since you are both paying and earning the interest, so it is a wash. Yes, it allows you to put more money into your 401k, but unlike a 401k contribution, you don't get a tax deduction for paying it, even if you use it to buy a house or pay for an education. The interest is after-tax money, and the earnings on that interest, when you pull them out, will be fully taxable. Loans can generally be taken for a term of up to 5 years, but sometimes longer if used to buy a house. See the summary plan document for your 401k for details. 403b loans are essentially identical to 401k loans. So should you take out a 401k loan or borrow elsewhere? Well, it can be a little bit difficult to choose. The largest benefit of a 401k loan is that you don't have to qualify for it. So if your credit is terrible, no one will loan money to you, or you just don't want to bother with the hassle of applying, a 401k loan can work out okay, particularly if it is a very short-term loan. But those with good credit and a solid debt-to-income ratio can often qualify to borrow at much better terms. You see, when you borrow from your 401k, you aren't borrowing from a bank or brokerage house. You're borrowing from future you. The actual interest rate you are paying on that debt is the return on the investments in the 401k that you would have earned if you had not borrowed the money out. That rate is unknowable in advance. It could be quite high. It could be low. It could even be negative. But there's no way to know in advance. This introduces an element of market timing into the decision of whether to borrow from your 401k or from a bank. Market timing is difficult, and chances are that you cannot do it successfully long term. Perhaps the best reason not to raid your 401k is that money you put into your 401k is for retirement. Using it like an ATM for consumer goods is a good way to not reach your most important financial goal, building a nest egg sufficiently large to support you the rest of your life. I know of at least one investor who routinely used a 401k loan for a different reason. The 401k was terrible, with lousy, high-fee investments with expense ratios over 2% per year. While he wanted the tax deduction for contributing, he didn't actually want to invest in any of the investments in the 401k. So he borrowed the money out and invested it elsewhere. He thought he'd get a higher return in a taxable account, even with the tax drag. He was not too worried about the consequences of job loss since he figured he could liquidate the investment and use the proceeds to pay off the loan if needed. There's obviously a bit of risk there if the investment has lost value at the same time you lose your job. In general, a 401k loan, like a credit card loan, a home equity line of credit, or a car loan, is something to avoid. Minimizing how much you borrow and doing so for as short a time period as possible is an important rule of personal finance. Don't make a habit of breaking it.